Once there was a fairy who was the nicest looking fairy for miles around. She was a nasty, arrogant little tart who loved to torment the lesser animals in the Enchanted Forest by making them think she would have sex with them, which she would never do. She did this so often that one day all of the lesser animals got together in the Enchanted Forest to discuss how they were going to get their revenge. Mr. Rabbit said, "Well, my friends, we must do something. That little fairy has made us all look like a right bunch of tits." "I think she should be burned alive," said Mrs. Field Mouse, whose husband Mr. Field Mouse had not been able to stop masturbating since the fairy put her spell on him weeks ago. "Hear, hear," said Mr. Fox, who basically hated everyone. "She should most definitely be killed." Everyone expected this attitude from Mr. Fox. The fairy had been making advances at him for months, showing a flagrant disregard for the fact that Mr. Fox was a homosexual. It had been like this for some time. Almost all of the lesser animals in the Enchanted Forest had suffered at the whim of the fairy. Mr. Mole had actually committed suicide by diving under the farmer's lawn machine, and Mrs. Squirrel had had to cram a whole acorn into her tiny squirrel vagina in order to keep Mr. Squirrel from continually raping her and shouting the fairy's name. "That little fairy has turned my husband into a raving pervert," she said, sitting uncomfortably on the enormous acorn lodged in her vagina. "Kill her before it's too late." Mr. Grasshopper said, "Now listen, my friends. It's not necessary to get into such an uproar. There is a way to neutralize her as a threat to our community and teach her a lesson in the meantime. I mean, of course, to say, my friends, that we should hire the rats." Everyone gasped at the mention of the rats, the deadliest, most ferocious ninja clan in all the Enchanted Forest, and everyone, including the fairy, feared them greatly. They were ruthless, secretive, and terrible. A vote was cast, and all were in favor of Grasshopper's terrible solution. "It's settled then," said Mr. Rabbit. "I shall attempt to make contact with the rats and see if I can render their services. If you don't hear from me in a day or so, you must assume that I am dead, and someone else must try to contact them." So Mr. Rabbit put on his peasant disguise and went to find the noodle shop owned by Gregory, the secret envoy of the local rats ninja clan. 3 days later, the fairy awoke to find her mouth and genitals sewn shut, her arms, legs, and fairy wings expertly amputated, and that she was hung upside down from a tree in the center of the Enchanted Forest beneath a large sign that had printed on it in large red letters the words "Prick Tease." She eventually was forgotten and died of starvation, for as we all know, animals have terribly short memories and attention spans, and her rotting corpse hung there for months. The end.